Hello, I'm Marilyn Rosine Beasley, and today I want to dedicate my talk to all the grandmothers who are either raising their grandchildren or they're helping with the grandchildren, and I have many friends and relatives who are in that category. I want to start out talking about liberty and freedom. The United States of America was a very special country. Our founding fathers, some of them were willing to put their lives on the line. And as I remember from my classes in, elementary, middle school, high school, there were comments by people like Patrick Henry who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Well, right now, I think in the United States of America, we have allowed the government to take over and do too much control. That's my opinion. I don't even know what the founding fathers would think about what's going on right now. So anyway, I want to emphasize that everybody get a copy and read the Declaration of Independence. I think it would be great if they read the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. I remember that we used to have the right to assembly, and I remember that we had the right to choose a religion. And we even had the right to not have a religion. And right now, it seems to me that the government has decided that we all must do social distancing 6 feet apart. And that doesn't make sense to me, because now we're not supposed to be in a group of more than 10 people. And that really is not logical to me, because I have been a public health nurse since 1991. And I would review active TB cases, and it's all about time and space. It only takes one active case to infect others, but you have to look at time and space. How much time did others spend with the person, and were they in a small area, like maybe they were carpooling every day for 5 days to and from work? That's much more dangerous than if they're working in a big warehouse with tall ceilings, or maybe they're outside. So I recommend right now that we all do everything we can to be outside in parks and beaches and at the lake, or maybe in the backyard gardening. That's what I would do. I have been writing letters. I've written several emails to the president of Trump. I've written the same emails to others. And I yesterday wrote 2 more emails to President Trump. One of them was talking about the idea of take the patients out of the hospitals, put them on cots, put them under those small little pavilions you can buy at the sporting goods store that a lot of people take on picnics or to the ball game. Get them out of the hospitals. In the United States of America, we have very dangerous germs where people die that aren't even that sick of things like what's called MRSA. So that's what I wrote, something very brief. Please get them outside on cots under these little pavilions. Then I also read I saw an article about all the people that have died in nursing homes. So I wrote another email to President Trump, and I suggested that they get patients, the clientele should be put out on the patios, get those nursing home patients, put them under these little pavilions. Maybe they're in their wheelchairs, maybe they're at tables. That's what I recommend. I also recommend that all the restaurants around the city of Houston, if there's any way that they can set up tables outdoors, that they start offering meals outdoors. Get those little pavilions or whatever else they might have on their patio. We have got to get this nation back to work. Anyway, I wanted to share with you something else. There is a newspaper called the Epoch Times. This newspaper is a very conservative newspaper. And I wrote them yesterday. I wrote a letter to their editor, and I received a response back from an actual person. It wasn't just thank you, from Senator John Cornyn, one of my senators, or from Senator Cruz, thank you for your information. It was a real person. So I want you to understand, and I would love for everybody to get a copy of Epoch Times. There's a lot of amazing articles in here about these issues that we need to think about. I am wondering if the government has overstepped their bounds and if they've been in violation of what we call our Bill of Rights. But anyway, I do recommend. Now, there was one article in here that really caught my attention. It was written by somebody that is pointing out that it may end up being amazing this year because all these children weren't in school. They were doing things online. And they also weren't stressed about, in Texas, we take the STAR. They weren't stressed about the STAR. They actually learned that learning is fun. Learning is supposed to be fun, but in Texas, we've turned it into a headache. The parents don't like STAR. The kids hate STAR. The administrators, the teachers, everybody hates STAR except for one group. And that's the group that owns the test, that administers and makes a lot of money. So I guess this year, the kids are going to find out learning actually can be fun and should be. Anyway, because besides being a registered nurse, I am a certified elementary school teacher. I'm also a reading specialist, and I have my MBA. It just so happens that I figured out along the way that learning was fun. Only I was picking and choosing what I wanted to learn, and I found things that were relevant. So I want to encourage parents to think about things that are relevant. All right, so that brings me to something else I want to mention today, and that is one of the things we could talk about that's relevant is we can talk to students, our children, and say, how did pioneers live a long time ago before they had electricity? How did people live? How did they get by? How did the American Indians live in the United States of America without electricity and the modern comforts? Okay, well, all groups have to figure out what they're going to do for water, food, and shelter. And they look around their area and they say, do we need to follow the buffalo like the American Indians did? Do we need to find berries and nuts and things like that and go foraging in the woods? So every group has to adapt, and eventually many of them start gardens. So I want to just talk to you about asking your students, your children, these questions. What did the American Indians do? What did the pioneers in the United States do when they went off to settle the West? They adapted. So these are relevant questions. Now, something else that I want to mention is, while you're talking about the American Indians and the pioneers, you could ask your children, your students, what do we need to do to be able to live without electricity for 6 months, for instance? People actually do still go camping in the wilderness, and so there's many things that they can do. So I want to show you some things that I've gathered that belong to me. Now, it just so happens that these are items from my pantry, and they have different relevance. I have peanut butter, I have some canned goods, I have some honey, I have some old-fashioned oats, and I happen to have some nuts. I have dried rice. I have dried beans. And these are things that I actually have in my pantry right now. So what I would do is I would calculate what I need for 6 months for each person. Now, another thing that I would do, because in Texas, in this part of Texas, around Houston, we have hurricanes. Now, we get warning when we have hurricanes. So that gives us time I live in Jersey Village, which is right outside of Houston. That gives us time to fill a bathtub with water. I can also fill jugs that I have left with water. And so I can fill up all kinds of things with water. Now, if for some reason the water became unsafe to drink, there's ways that you can purify the water. You can use a little bit of Clorox. You can also put water in glass jars and put them in the sunlight for 24 hours. Now, when it rains, you would want to put everything you could, buckets, all kinds of receptacles, pitchers, anything that you could so that you could get water from the sky. So there's plenty of ways that you can do that. Now, also, when I ran for city council, and then I ran for state representative, District 135, I developed a flyer. This is an emergency preparedness flyer. I've lived through several hurricanes. I worked at Harris Health when Katrina happened, and so I've collected some information. Jersey Village has had 4 major floods. Unfortunately, the city council still has not addressed what they could do, but anyway, it is what it is. I also had added a list of community resources and also family resources. I had things here because I attend Cypress, Texas Tea Party, Cherry Tree Republican Club. I had their listing. I had things like Harris County Health Department, which I used to work for. Anyway, just different resources. I also had family activities, Harris County Precinct 4, Park, Family Fun, and Nature, because I do live in this area. I also included Miller Outdoor Theater in Herman Park and some of the local churches around here. There's also things that there was a summer reading program. I have that listed. Now, right now, if you have access to the internet, this would be a great time for you to get online and look at the different museums around the world and see what they have in the way of virtual tours. I am a member of the museum here in Houston, and I love to go to the museum. Of course, right now it's shut down. The libraries are shut down, and I'm a big believer in actually going to a library and sitting there and touching a book. And right now I have a stack of books that I would like to read. So anyway, these are some resources. Now, another thing I want everybody to think about is you might get some seeds and start doing some gardening. And I've done, I did a YouTube video about gardening, and also there's a lot of seeds in here. So what I would do is find somebody and share some of these seeds with. Now, you can also find somebody who has different seeds, and then you can just figure out who needs what. Now, I also want to emphasize something else, and I've talked about this before. Lemons are a great source of vitamin C, and they're also a disinfectant. And what you can do is you can clean your hands. If you don't have water, you can clean your hands, get them get all that residue off. And also ashes from the fire, you can use that to clean your hands if you don't have soap and water. That's another thing, that little tip. Now, another thing I want to mention, I found this book, and it's written by somebody named Earl, probably it's Prouxx. He was the editor of Yankee magazine, and he wrote a book called Make It Last. He talked about how beneficial it is when you make sure that you maintain your items. Now, we also need to maintain our bodies. We need to eat healthy. We need, in my opinion, it's very important to brush your teeth twice a day, and the reason is the last thing you want to do is be dealing with gum infection right now. So anything that you can do to make sure that you brush your teeth twice a day. You don't have to use toothpaste. If you have baking soda, that's another option. Okay, and then also I wanted to show a couple of more things here. I have a first aid kit. It's just a basic essential first aid kit. I'm not sure where I bought it, but they sell them in a lot of places, and this one I'm going to keep in my car, and so I will have that handy. Also, it's good to have a box of Band-Aids nearby. These things are mentioned on this flyer about things like that. Now, there's another tip I want to share with you. Recently, I've noticed that a lot of items are coming in these kind of bags. Now, this was frozen peaches, and I like peaches, and then I can use these for making smoothies with yogurt, whatever berries and peaches, fruit that I have on hand. They have a little zipper type thing with them, so this could be used later. This could be, you could wash it out with soap and water, let it dry, and later on you could put something else in, and this can be used over and over again. And it seems to me like this is just another thing that people could do to utilize things and be frugal. I am, as I've mentioned before, I am the oldest child in a family with 6 children. My parents were chemists, both chemists, and their parents were farmers. So I grew up with frugal, and I grew up with a big backyard garden. My mother did her best to teach me things about gardening, and at that time I was not that interested, and now I am. So Mother's deceased, and I hope she's laughing in heaven about the fact that I'm talking to people about gardening, and especially using the nicest things I can. I do buy organic soil. I buy as much organic water that I can for my garden, because I'm concerned about some of the hazardous chemicals that have been added over the years to our soil. So anyway, these are just some little tips to encourage you to talk to your kids about, what would it take to live for 6 months if you were an American Indian. That could be, you could talk about that, research that, and talk about ideas. What was their government like? What did they do for medicines? Because they couldn't go to the Walgreens. They couldn't have a pharmacist mix it up. So what did they use? Because people have known for a long time that there's plants and other items that have medicinal properties. So this might be some ideas for some relevant information that your students, while they're home, could research. Anyway, I just want everybody to have a blessed day, and life is short. It's going fast. I get up every day early and I do a lot of things, and one of the things I do for me is practice my piano. 15-20 minutes a day. You'd be surprised what you can do with a little bit of practice every day. So these are just some ideas to get everybody started. Another thing I want to encourage everybody: walk as much as you can. Take good care of your body. Don't overeat. Eat healthy, and have a blessed day. Thank you.